Hey, this is Tony Ross for TonyTeach.com, and in this tutorial I'm going to be doing this little title treatment based off of a certain movie. We'll call it KeyBeeper, and starring that action hero Stacey Jaythem. Anyway, so we're going to be going over how to pull this off using some little track mats, as well as setting up our type in Illustrator, converting it to outlines, and then actually animating those outlines in After Effects. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so let's dive over to Illustrator. And the font I'm using, this is pretty close to the actual movie in question. The font they use, this isn't the exact one, but it's it's an Adobe font I'm using called Good Headline Pro. And so I've got this set up here, and I think I've kerned this pretty well. And what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and convert this to outlines. And for the record, what color am I using? The hex code I'm using is DEB604. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and convert this to outlines. So I'll do Command-Shift-O. That's Control-Shift-O on PC. All right, and since I don't need the word "the" on the same layer with everything else, I'm going to go ahead and separate this. Now, when you create outlines in Illustrator, it does group these. So I'm going to ungroup them, Command-Shift-G. And I can grab the, and we'll cut that. Let's go to my layers, make a new layer. Call that the. We'll paste in place, Command-Shift-V, that's Control-Shift-V on PC. And we'll call this layer the KeyBeeper. And I'll go ahead and save this out. And now let's head over to After Effects. Let's go ahead and make a new document here. And first up, we'll go ahead and import our Illustrator file, but we're going to bring this in as a composite. So I'll simply double click in the project area. And I'll find our little KeyBeeper 3. And I want to bring this in as a composition and retain layer sizes. Not going to check any of the boxes down here. And we'll click Open. And now I can double click, and we have this little area set up here. And if we look down in our timeline, we have two different layers. We have the, of course, and then we have KeyBeeper. So what I want to do is convert this to a outline. So right now we can't change anything inside of After Effects, but I want to change this, outline shape from Illustrator to a After Effects shape layer. So I can right click on KeyBeeper, go to Create, and come down to Create Shapes from Vector Layer. All right. Now, if you note, the original Illustrator file that's turned off, we can go ahead and delete that layer. I'm going to leave the there. And I could just kind of call that KeyBeeper. And what I need to do now is go through and look at how this is set up. So if I expand this, we see KeyBeeper, we also see contents, and we have multiple layers here. So if I click on group 1, you can see that's the R, group 2, group 3, and it's kind of actually done backwards. So what I can do, let's bring this up a little bit here, is I am going to come over to our side here, look at properties. And the cool thing about properties in the latest versions of After Effects, I can not only look at the different groups over here, but I can actually set up a little stopwatch for the path, because that's what we're going to be animating. So if I look at, zoom in here, if I look at this, this is pretty much a little path that we can move and change over time. And what I'll do is select group 9. And on my keyboard, I'll hit return, and I can simply call that K. And we look over there in our properties, there's K. And I also do want to go ahead and set up a path now. We're starting a path animation. Go to the next one. And I'll change this. It's going to be an E. Hit return again and set up a path. And I'm going to keep doing this all the way through. This is going to be our letter Y. And we'll turn on the path stopwatch. Now, what's going to happen here for the letter B, it's a little different. So I'm going to go ahead and change the name. But if you look in our properties area, it tells you that multiple paths are here. So if we open up the B layer, there's path 1, 2, and 3. So if I select all of these, I'm just holding on my shift key and select more than one, open it up, and I can click on one of the paths, and now I have a keyframe for all of these. Now the keyframe is going to allow us to start or pretty much set what everything looks like at the beginning, and we're going to change that over time. All right, so we'll go to 5, hit return, do another E, and just coming over and setting up that path as well. Now we're on the P. It's kind of the same thing as we did before. We do have multiple shapes here. So my return. Click on path 1, hold down shift, and we'll click on path 2. We'll open this up and turn on the stopwatch for both layers. And last but not least, we'll do this last E. Do our path and the letter R. Select both paths. Turn it on. Okay, so now we've gone through and changed all of our layer names, as well as we've given each of our paths, including where we've had multiple paths on one shape. We've given all of those a starting keyframe. So what we'll want to do next is we're going to do our finishing keyframe. And what I'll do is go to frame 50. Now over in my timing area here, if you hold down your command key or your control key on PC, you can click and toggle between frames and the time code. I typically like working in frames, so I can just highlight frames here. I'm going to go about to frame, I think I'll go to frame 60. All right. And the next thing I'll do is, I think I'm going to give myself a little bit of a guide here. And that way I'll know which letters are going to come down a little bit further. So I'm going to click off of everything here. I'll grab my pen tool. And what I want to do is kind of click right here where the K is, then maybe come over to where the B is. And I'm going to come a little bit lower. Maybe go up a little bit here. And just kind of using this as a guide. It doesn't have to be anything that I'll keep. And I don't want this to be a fill. Just want it to be a little stroke that I can see. Just kind of give it a nice little wave here. And this is going to be a little guide so I know which parts are going to bring down a little lower, keep which parts I'll keep higher. And just go ahead and call that guide for now. And I'm going to delete it in the end. and make that a little smaller. Don't need it to be that thick. Okay. So what I'll do is get back to frame 60 here. And we'll go to our KeyBeeper layer, and we'll start with our K. And I'll go to my selection tool. Let's zoom in here. And what I want to do is click on one of the points. Now, once I have one of the points selected, I can click outside of this and drag. And for this one, I want the bottom 4 points. Hold down my Shift key, and I'm just going to press down until it gets to that point there. And I'll come in and select the E. So grab that one point on the E, and I'll click and drag and grab these other points. Hold down Shift again. And we'll have that come down a little bit lower. All right. Click on the Y. So I'm just, again, it's kind of lather, rinse, repeat here. For the most part, I'll click and drag and grab these bottom 2 points. Hold down Shift. Let's bring our Y down a little bit lower. And here's where we're going to do something a little different. With the B, there are several points, and in order to keep this looking a certain way, we're going to stretch out the bottom half here. But to do that, I'm going to add in some points so we can keep that little line, these lines here, kind of straight. So I'm going to bring up our rulers. I'll simply do Command R, Control R on PC, and I'll click and drag down a nice little line here. What I'm paying attention to is right where these 2 points are. So I'm going to make additional points on the inside part as well as the part here. So I'm going to go to my pen tool and come right here, and I'll click on adding a point and come over to the other side. Let's zoom in here and add a point as well. And we'll go back to our selection tool, and I'll click to add this one point at the bottom. Let's zoom in so I can see a little bit better. And I'll click and drag, but what I want to do is make sure I grab those other points there. All right, let's zoom out. Let's hold down our Shift key, and what you'll notice is by adding those points in, we're going to be able to elongate the shape here without it getting weird. All right, so I'm going to hold down my Shift key. Let's press down. Let's keep it going, pressing down, using my down arrow. Zoom out. All right, not bad. And now we'll go to the next E, grab that point, click and select our other bottom points here. All right, and just a little bit of lather, rinse, repeat. This one comes in a little higher. Now, this one I just literally just clicked on one point and held on my Shift key and clicked on the other. Hold down Shift and we'll go down. Click our point here. And bring that down. And let's see if we can do this last one the same way we did the K. Let's bring these down a bit. All right, so when we zoom out of this, all right, not too bad. And turn off our guide. If I scrub our playhead, this is what we have. And we now have our basic little shape movement happening as far as all of our letters, and they're actually stretching out over time. And what I'll do next is I do want to go ahead and do what's called an easy ease. So if I select the KeyBeeper layer here, I'm simply going to press the letter U, and that way I will see where all the pieces are here. And what I want to do is I'll select the last keyframe, and on my keyboard simply press F9 to do easy ease, or you can right click, go to Keyframe Assistant, and then select easy ease that way. So now if I play this, hit my spacebar, all right, looks pretty good. All right, now that we have that part, we could go in and kind of even stagger these if we wanted to. Like if I select KeyBeeper, let's say the letter E here, what if we went in and offset where those keyframes were? So I can select these, maybe these come in a little bit later. Just click and move those over. Or instead of moving both keyframes, maybe I'll take that last keyframe and move it out a bit. So you can go in and stagger these a little bit, and it's going to add to the look as far as kind of keeping it a little more organic and not so stiff. So I'm just randomly moving some of the pieces here. All right, so if I hit the spacebar, all right, and let me shorten my work area here. If I move my playhead to about frame 150, I'll go ahead and press the letter N to shorten the work area so we can kind of see how that looks pretty good. Excellent. Now, the next thing we'll do is we are going to add in some texture so this just doesn't look too clean. One of the awesome things about the way the trailer looked, it's like looks like little dust or dirt or grime or even gunshot blast. So what we're going to do is bring in a little image here so I can double click in my project area. And I located this on Unsplash. This is by a gentleman by the name Nick Iliasov, I believe. Iliasov. Hope I'm pronouncing that correct. But basically, if you go on Unsplash or any place like that and you're looking for grunge textures, so I'm going to open it up. And literally, if I double click, this is what that piece looks like. All right. And what I want to do is bring this down to our little scene here. And it's pretty large. I can click and scale that down. Also grab my little rotate. I'm going to rotate that a little bit. Zoom in. Let's grab our selection tool, and I'll maybe scale that in a little bit more. All right, so pretty decent. And what I will need to do is I want to be able to see what's called the track mats here. So where I have the KeyBeeper, that layer, it says no mat. I'm going to come down and select the Unsplash there. And what we see initially is, well, nothing. So the type of mat that I have going on right now, I'm going to come over here and click on this little icon. And so I see this a little bit different. It's kind of mostly black and not a lot of yellow. So what I'll do is click on the invert right next to it. And so this is what we end up with. Now, the cool part is I can still grab this original grunge piece and move it around until I find area that I like. think that's pretty cool there. All right. And if you look, the difference between what we had earlier, there's the way it looks normally, and here is our little texture or grunge look. So we'll do the same thing with the. Make sure we set that to the correct map. And we are going to change it from a just normal track to a Luma, and then invert that. So what we have now, if we hit play, all right, not too bad. Now, next up, what I'll do is I'm going to create little scaling here. But before we do, we'll go ahead. I can actually get rid of my guide layer now. Just select the guide layer and delete. And we'll select all three of these. And we'll do a composite or a precompose. Right click, go to precompose. And I'll just call this something like logo. And click OK. And what I can do now, zoom in here, we have all this in our pre-composition. Let's press S for scale and drop a keyframe at the beginning. And let's say by frame 60 or so, we'll scale that up maybe to 115, 120. Let's see what that looks like. Not too bad. I'm probably going to move that keyframe out a little bit further and then select both of these, and we'll do Easy Ease. So F9, or right click and go to Keyframe Assistant and Easy Ease. All right, looks good. And last up, we'll go ahead and add in our little main actor here, our little Stacey Jaythem. So now I could just go ahead and place this on a totally different layer here, or I could place it inside of this composition, the logo composition. So if I double click, I can still go inside that comp, make sure no layer is selected. Let's grab our type tool. I click down once, and I'm just going to use an Arial black here. And let's write out the name, Stacey space Jaytham. And what I want to do is make sure that's definitely aligned with the composition. Let's move that to the center there. Now, one thing that I've done, I think in this type here, is I did adjust where the properties were as far as the tracking or the lighting here. I did mine where it's originally at, let's say 900. So it's a little more than normal. But what I'd like to do is a couple of things here. Like maybe we're going to maybe even start the opacity, like as most of this kind of gets most of the way there, let's say around 50, maybe that's where the little name will start coming up. So I'll press the letter T for opacity. Let's go ahead and turn on stopwatch, come toward our end here. Press another keyframe, another keyframe there. And I forgot to change that first key. So I can literally double click on that first keyframe, set it to 0. All right, let's drop this down to 1/3 so we can see what we're doing. All right, not too bad. I'll go ahead and ease that. So F9. And what I can also do is come over here to my text, collapse and open that up. So if you look at text here, come over to Animate, and I want to add tracking. So make sure it's set to before and after. It says tracking amount is at 0. All right, and I'll set tracking here and figure out where that comes into play. Just trying to visually see where that's completely opaque there. And what I can do is take the tracking amount and I'm going to ramp this up so it stretches out. So the space in between the letters there, between a little bit further out there between the type. Now I might want to bring that out a little bit further, all the way to the end. All right, now if we go back to the original little KeyBeeper composite and hit play, all right, and I'll double click and extend my work area. So if I play this now, and there we have our finished type treatment. Even though this is called the KeyBeeper, technically we could add one extra little thing here. I did go online and just did a quick search, and I didn't find a free one, but I did just kind of do a quick search for different images as far as bees. So I can bring in a little bee green screen here. And if I pull this on top of everything, looks good. And what you would do if you can actually find something like this, I'll leave a link to where I found this. You can come over to Effects and Presets, and I'm going to type in KEYL for Keylight, double click, and I'll come over here, grab our eyedropper, and just click on one of the little green spots there. And now what we have are bees added onto the scene. And that is our little title treatment for the KeyBeeper. I hope Mr. Jaythem is going to be happy with our treatment here. So if you see another title that you'd like us to go ahead and tackle, let me know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe, share this with others. And if you really want to get more in depth with this, we do have some workshops coming up where you can learn tips and tricks like this in After Effects, Premiere, Illustrator, Photoshop, basically the whole works. We're going to have an entire workshop week coming up, and you'll find the link in the description, or you can simply go to adobeworkshops.tonyteach.com. This has been Tony Ross for tonyteach.com. Remember, make art, not excuses. So go make something. Have a good one.